Hello and welcome back to another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast. Going to be the last edition, sadly, as we move to a new format starting next week, consolidating to one sports show. So you're going to see me on that instead of just college football. Probably a little bit better. We'll see, though. Got a good show for you today. First, we're going to start with previewing the MAC. Everybody, gotta love MACtion, right? One of the best conferences. Free entertainment during the week. We're going to talk about the MAC and preview that, who could potentially win, who could potentially, do something. We're also going to discuss the Conference USA today. Going to preview that, kind of do something similar to what we're going to do with the MAC. We're also going to touch on some transfers still available in the portal, and we're going to finish off the show today by talking about kind of a unique partnership in the Big 12 WWE deal. Just announced kind of an expansion of their partnership, so we're going to dive into that, what it could potentially mean for the Big 12. But first, before I do anything else, I just want to remind everybody that this show is all about you. We love hearing your thoughts, your questions, your comments, your insights, your opinions, your hot takes, whatever you got, we want to hear it. We want to make this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that, if you're on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in, and this guarantees that your message gets on the air and gets read live. It's also just a great way to support our channel, support what we're trying to build here at GSMC. We couldn't do what we do without your ongoing support, and we're so grateful to have you all as a part of our community here. Now, let's dive into some MACtion. Come on, who doesn't love MACtion? I know that I do. The MAC, it's proof that kind of a Big Tent can occasionally produce incredible things. As college football keeps kind of trending towards closing up shop, distributing more money to fewer schools, and the idea of a so-called Super League still kind of in contention, one that would pretty much limit or completely eliminate opportunities for MAC-level programs. It's all kind of wafting around, but the MAC's still here. The league, the conference, and their teams are still trying to make some noise throughout the college football world. Obviously, they had a big one last year. Northern Illinois upsetting Notre Dame early on in the season was a big win for the Mid-American Conference. In the past 25 years, MAC teams have scored 78 wins over Power Conference schools, so not kind of out of the realm of possibilities. There's a couple big-time matchups this year, too, that could potentially kind of fall into that category. The current kind of makeup of the MAC, though, is interesting. You have the top couple of teams in Toledo, Bowling Green, Miami, all OU, also kind of all up there. But then you have that bottom tier with Kent State, Akron, programs that have only won a couple games over the past few seasons. So the bottom half has kind of always been shaky. 2024 was no exception for that. MAC teams occupied 4 of the bottom 15 slots in last year's SP Plus rankings, which kind of just rank a team based on their entire makeup of work, not just on record, but kind of just how they are as a football team. They had 4 of the bottom 15 teams in the country, including Kent State, who went 0-12 last year, worst team in the FBS in 4 seasons. Then you have their brutal offseason. First, Northern Illinois announces that they are going to be leaving and joining the Mountain West Conference in 2026. Second, MAC teams got hit hard by the transfer portal. They kind of always do. The general attrition as well. Their returning production average was around 40%, 41.1 to be exact. That was more than 12 percentage points than the national average. So MAC teams really got hit hard. Then you look at the reigning conference champion head coach in Ohio's coach Tim Albin left to join Charlotte, who has had just one winning season ever at the FBS level. Then Bowling Green head coach Scott Loeffler also leads. He goes for the NFL, gets a position coach job there this spring. So that's another big-time head coach in the MAC that leaves the MAC again. This has kind of been something where continuity has been increasingly difficult to build for MAC schools, right? If you have a really great standout year in the MAC, chances are the next year you're not still going to be in the MAC. We've seen it with quarterbacks like Curtis Rourke, skill position guys. Dante Cephas a few years ago from Kent State transferred out after an incredible season. This is kind of just what's been happening. You look at continuity, right? Who's returning the most production? Toledo is in the lead at the MAC. They have 2/3 of their returning production coming back from a team that was not too bad last year. But then you had a lot of transfers too. Ryan Strader's out, went to Auburn. Bowling Green running back Terrion Stewart, absolute stud, went to Virginia Tech. Ethan Hampton, Northern Illinois head quarterback, gone to Illinois. Ball State tight end Tanner Koziel, really great tight end. He's gone too. He's at Houston now. You have a number of guys that have left. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see who actually, comes out on top from the MAC just in this crazy world of the transfer portal, NIL, all of this new kind of era of college football. Toledo, Buffalo, they mostly kind of avoided the fate of the rest of their conference opponents last year. They're both top 50 in returning production. And Buffalo won 9 games last year. Quietly kind of had an intriguing season. They improved from 119th to 87th in SP+. They have a second-year head coach in Pete Lembo, who was able to kind of build a solid base of redshirt freshmen too. So you have young guys that are kind of going to step up into bigger roles this year as they mature, as they get older, as they develop. They're going to be able to do a lot more now as sophomores, as guys that are kind of on the upswing of their development. Ohio, too, they're kind of interesting. They lost Tim Albin, their head coach, but they promote offensive coordinator Brian Smith to head coach. You keep that continuity going. You keep the same system in. You also have a few really key pieces returning. Quarterback Parker Navarro, one of the best group of 5 quarterbacks, a guy that is electric, dual threat ability, able to really use his legs really well. You have left tackle Davion Weatherspoon still there. You have safety DJ Walker still there. So there might be enough still at Ohio for the Bobcats to stay in contention for the MAC championship. If you look at projections right now, Toledo is in the lead. They're projected to be the best team in the MAC by a pretty good margin. So it's also kind of telling that of the entire conference, only 4 teams are top 100 teams right now to be projected. And Toledo is the highest at 72 in the country. So not a lot of love for the MAC right now. Only 4 of those, like I said, are top 100 teams. Those kind of make sense. It's the 2 teams that played in the title game last year in Ohio and Miami, and then 2 teams who returned the most from 2024, Toledo and Buffalo. Those 4 teams are pretty much the top tier of the MAC this year, kind of sounds like. There's pretty good odds that at least one of those teams kind of clicks and is probably playing at a top 50 or 60 level. I wouldn't say they're going to be a top 25 team, but there's going to be probably at least one MAC team that really comes out of this as a stronger program than people might expect. I think it's probably going to be Toledo. We're going to dive into kind of each team in a few minutes, but the odds of that are pretty good, and the odds of the bottom of the conference being really, really poor is really good as well. You have UMass coming back to the MAC. Obviously, UMass not known for their football prowess. They also have a new head coach. Pretty much no expectations. You have Akron, who, again, kind of at that bottom. Ball State, Kent State. Kent State also fired their head coach, Kenny Burns, this year after a weird kind of investigation from the school. Not really sure what happened there with Kenny Burns, but end of the line, he's out as the head coach at Kent State. There's a couple really solid games here. One of the earliest tone-setting games is going to be Toledo at Bowling Green on October 11th. Most of the biggest games in the MAC this year are going to take place once MACtion starts in November, but this game, it's going to be an early tone setter between a talented Toledo team that has a pretty navigable early schedule, and then you have a Bowling Green team under new head coach Eddie George coming in. After leading Tennessee State to the FCS playoffs last year, he returns to the state where he made his name and comes back to Ohio, takes over as the head coach at Bowling Green. How that's going to work out, we really don't know. He had a really great season last year with Tennessee State, but obviously you're jumping up to the FBS level. There's a lot of other variables that FBS head coaches kind of have to deal with that FCS head coaches don't. So how Bowling Green's going to look is going to be interesting. Looking at Toledo, your head coach is Jason Candle still, and it's kind of impossible to adequately evaluate Jason Candle. On one hand, kind of despite running this program with more consistent investment, high-quality recruiting than pretty much everybody else in the MAC, he's only won 2 MAC titles in 10 years. So it's always going to feel like the title rate should kind of be higher than that for the Rockets. But then on the other hand, you look, his Rockets teams have won 11 games twice. They've taken down Arkansas, Iowa State, BYU, Mississippi State, and Pitt during his tenure. His next win is going to be the 74th win at Toledo, where he will pass Gary Pinkel's total. He will become the winningest head coach in Toledo history at some point this year. There's been some really awesome offenses early on in his tenure. Kind of has shifted directions a little bit, but you have your quarterback returning, you have your very good secondary returning, and this really kind of feels like a really solid chance for Jason Candle to earn that 3rd MAC title there. I'm really curious on what's going to happen week 1 with Toledo. Week 1, they go to Lexington and play the Kentucky Wildcats. I think that's going to be a really kind of tone-setting game. Obviously, week 1, you're going to set the tone no matter what. But if Toledo is able to compete with Kentucky, able to potentially pull off an upset like they did at Mississippi State last year, Kentucky's going to be towards the bottom of the SEC again. So it seems like it's a somewhat winnable matchup for the Rockets. I think that's going to be a really kind of showing game of where Toledo's going to end up this year. If they can compete with Kentucky, if they can hold tight, they don't even have to win the game, but if they can keep it within, a touchdown, 10 points, something like that, that really bodes well for the future success of the 2025 Toledo Rockets. But if they kind of get blown out, shown up at Kentucky, I think that could put an early damper on their season, potentially change their trajectory. It's going to be interesting. Last year, the offense kind of slipped to 88th, which is the worst ranking of the Jason Candle era at Toledo. So they're going to have to improve the offense. They scored 15 or fewer in 4 MAC games last year. They lost all 4 of those. Obviously, the run game was the primary culprit. Rockets were just 124th last year in rush success rate. So the line was kind of really leaning on youngsters. The running backs didn't break nearly enough tackles. That run game really kind of drug the Rockets down last year. If you're able to kind of shore up that run game, they brought in 4 offensive line transfers. You still have Tucker Gleason at quarterback. You still have your leading receiver last year in Junior Vander Ross III. And you bring in a transfer from Northern Illinois and Tavon Randolph, who these are all going to be really big keys to the passing game. So if you're able to keep that continuity going with the passing game, if you're able to add a little bit to the run game, this is going to be a Toledo team that can make some noise. Ohio. I think Ohio is kind of an interesting team too. Last year, ended up winning 11 games and the MAC title. Easily one of the best coaching jobs of the season last year. Instead of trying to pull off something similar this year, Tim Albin leaves, goes to Charlotte, and you bring Brian Smith in to replace him. But there's still a lot of pieces here. You have Parker Navarro back, who had 2,400 passing yards last year and 1,150 non-sack rushing yards last year. Sacks obviously go against the quarterback in college football. So if you take away the sacks, he had almost 1,200 yards on the ground as well. You have your left tackle back. You have safety DJ Walker back. You have Tank Pearson back. You have your returning running back, Sia Bongora, who had transferred to Minnesota last year. He comes back, decides that Athens, Ohio is the place he wants to be. And by MAC standards, the continuity levels here aren't terrible. You still kind of have to replace a good chunk. You have to replace your leading receiver. You have to replace at least 3 starting offensive linemen, at least 4 rotation linemen, and basically every linebacker for the second year in a row. That's going to be really tough. Even if they're able to kind of survive the major turnover once, having to do it year after year after year, especially when you change your head coach too, that's really difficult to do. So are they going to be able to do that? Bangura coming back is really big. Him and Parker Navarro should form one of the best backfields in the MAC. But we'll see. I think right now it really looks like Toledo, Ohio are probably your 2 safest bets for the MAC. But it's a league of chaos. It's a league where anything can happen. And we're just going to have to wait to see how the games end up playing out when they get on the gridiron later this year. So right now, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer portal and some players that are still remaining, still available in the portal. So we're going to dive into all of that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. On this Friday, May 30th, we got to the end of the week. Let's go, another one. Just touched a little bit about the MAC, a conference that really has got hit hard by the transfer portal. Speaking of the transfer portal, I'm going to talk now about some guys that are still available in the transfer portal, have not committed anywhere yet. There's still some solid options out here. One of those guys is Aiden Glover, quarterback. Aiden Glover, 2024 recruit, so still has 3 other years of eligibility left. Actually 4 because he redshirted last year. But this was a guy that was a 3-star quarterback, 40th overall at the quarterback position, and 644th overall in the country as a quarterback. So not a super highly ranked recruit, but a guy that ended up going to Missouri last year. So obviously had some big-time programs chasing after him. Had offers, too, from Georgia Tech, Indiana, Oklahoma State, other kind of Power 5 schools. And so took a redshirt last year, entered the portal in December, and we're still waiting on Aiden Glover. This is a guy that obviously did not get playing time last year, but it's a young developmental quarterback that has a lot of upside that pretty much every program is always looking for a younger quarterback that they can grow and develop and kind of keep in that room. This is what Aiden Glover can bring. He's not going to be stepping into a starting situation at any time right away, but a guy that you can put in your quarterback room, have him kind of learn and grow for a year or two, and potentially start down the road. The talent's still there. It's just, it didn't get a shot at Missouri, and now we're still waiting. I think he probably still ends up at an FBS school. Could it be a group of 5 school? That's certainly very possible. But Aiden Glover is still out there as a quarterback who you could definitely take a flyer on. Just a guy that's younger, kind of can grow and develop and kind of mold him as the quarterback that you want. Another interesting quarterback-athlete combo is James Rezer. So James Rezer, also a 2024 recruiting class guy, 3-star recruit, 700th in the country, around there, signed with Iowa last year. So wasn't an elite quarterback recruit, obviously, but still a quality rating as a 3-star prospect. And what kind of really makes him an attractive option is his athleticism. Also kind of complicates things because this is a guy that made the switch to wide receiver during the 2024 season after being a quarterback all throughout high school, but a knee injury sidelined him pretty much almost immediately, really early on in the year. The question, too, does he want to play quarterback? Does he want to play wide receiver? And then, once you figure that out, where does a specific team want him? Or do they want him as a quarterback? Do they want him as a wide receiver? That's probably the other kind of factor here. But James Rezer is a younger, athletic guy that you can have kind of move around the board. If you need a quarterback, you can put him in that quarterback room. If you want to try him out at wide receiver, you can try him out at wide receiver. But still another guy that 3-star, young, able to kind of mold him however you want. That's a guy that can be useful in a lot of situations, especially some of these smaller programs. You know, you take a MAC school and give them a 3-star quarterback athlete. That can make a big difference in a player's development. One running back I think is going to be interesting is Isaiah Augustov. This kid, moving on again. First went to Arkansas, impressed late in 2023 where he had a pair of 80-yard games at the end of the season there. Then goes to Colorado last year where he led the Buffaloes in rushing. Now, that wasn't really a big trait because Colorado, he was their leading rusher with only 384 rushing yards. So, not a whole lot, but a guy that you can have in the room, a rotational running back, has starter upside, and kind of can show that he might be able to do a little more. Yeah, I think that those 2023 performances when he was at Arkansas kind of showcased his potential, showcased what he could be. Now it's just up to finding the right landing spot. He did have a verbal commitment to Virginia in about April, but there was some kind of issue with credits transferring, so he ended up not transferring through to Virginia. So it's going to be interesting where Isaiah Augustov ends up at, but this is a guy that's a solid running back, has some high-end potential, and can really step into a role and at the minimum be a rotational guy, a guy that comes in for 10-15 snaps a game at the minimum. He gives you an experienced running back, and that's something that a lot of programs could be looking for right now. One wide receiver is Trajan Bridges. Trajan Bridges, this is an interesting story. 2019 recruit. So in the 2019 class was a 4-star top 70 prospect, signed with Oklahoma that year in a class that also included really hyped QB prospect Spencer Rattler, was then dismissed from Oklahoma after an incident that resulted in him pleading guilty to larceny. Then he kind of bounced around. Since has played for East Los Angeles College and then Central Arkansas. But last year at Central Arkansas, 53 catches, 729 yards, 6 touchdowns. So this is a guy that has kind of showcased he still has that potential. He still has that talent that made him a really highly regarded recruit. And can he parlay that success at Central Arkansas into a bigger role at an FBS school? That's going to be an interesting thing. He has taken visits to Syracuse and Maryland. Both of those I think would be really great fits. Syracuse obviously losing their lead receiver Trevor Pena this year, and then Maryland just not having a ton in that wide receiver room. They can both really add a guy like Trajan Bridges, who still has potential. Obviously much older as a prospect still, but a guy that had 730 receiving yards last year. Definitely can find a role somewhere, even if it's a smaller role. This is a guy that can play at the FBS level, and I think someone's going to take a chance on it. Cortez Braham Jr. is another wideout I'm looking at too. There really hasn't been a whole lot of news around him. This is a guy that had kind of a breakout year last year for Nevada with 56 catches, 724 yards, 4 touchdowns after transferring from West Virginia. This is a guy that's 6'2", 200, had a really productive year last year with Nevada, and is still on the board 5 months after deciding to leave the Wolfpack. I just think, though, his FBS production at this point in the portal, it can't be overlooked, and it really can't be found in a lot of other places. at this point, you're kind of going through and just trying to pick out, the last few guys that could potentially help you. And most of the time, it's kind of flyers, like an Aiden Glover. But when you have a guy in Cortez Graham Jr. who has proven production at the FBS level with Nevada, that's a big bonus. And that's a guy that definitely can step into a role at some point. Just has not found a home yet. Sorry, words are tough today. Another guy I'm looking at, Ian Rea. Now this is a long shot, but at this point in the portal, that's kind of where we're at. This guy transferring from D2, Emory, and Henry. But if you look at his stats over the past 2 years, 87 tackles, 26.5 tackles for loss with 12.5 sacks. Also has 6 forced fumbles and 3 fumble recoveries in that time. Has a couple group of 5 offers. Eastern Michigan, UAB, Western Kentucky have all kind of offered him. And this is a guy in Rea that still has 2 years of eligibility remaining. But that production at the D2 level at Emory Henry, that's really big. Kind of showcases his talent, showcases what he can do, showcases that maybe he's able to kind of take that step up in competition. That's the big question mark. It always is with guys transferring up, is can they kind of adjust to that next level? D2 Emory and Henry is not going to be the same as, playing at Georgia or something like that. That's just kind of how it goes. But the stats there in D2 kind of showcase that this could be a guy that can make that transition, can do the step up in competition, and he still has 2 years too. So this could be a spot where a group of 5 team like a Western Kentucky, like in Eastern Michigan, takes a chance on this kid, and he really has a big year for them. It's very possible. Sean Myers is another guy, linebacker from South Alabama. He only played in 2 games last year, so that kind of, I think, is hurting his profile right now. But during the 23 campaign, 58 tackles, 4.5 in the backfield, 2 interceptions as well, and also had 49 tackles in 2022. So this is a guy that has had production. Yes, it's at North Alabama, but still at the FBS level. Could he be able to make that power conference leap? It's very possible. He's gotten some group of 5 offers. Jacksonville State, Kent State, New Mexico State right now. But Colorado has also kind of been connected to Sean Myers. So could he potentially make that jump up, join a program like the Buffaloes? I think that's certainly very possible as well. When you're looking at another guy, Markevius Brown, kind of had a weird situation, departed mid-year from Purdue during the season. The program said it was, quote, necessary for him to step away due to a personal matter. So obviously any kind of interested parties are going to dive into that just for the context, just for what happened. But the statement said that he could return in 2025 to Purdue. However, he has since elected to test the transfer portal. Certainly good enough to remain at, the Big Ten, the Power Conference level. 45 stops last year, 6 pass breakups. That was in 2023, but then last year too. 9 tackles, 3 pass breakups during his 4 appearances. Obviously only played about a quarter of the season, but still produced at that time too. So this is a guy that has produced in 2023, produced in his few games in 24, and can still make that jump to the college, to the next level. He was at Purdue, obviously a Big Ten program, but one of the lesser Big Ten programs right now, I would say. This is a guy, though, that has shown he can do it at a Big Ten level, could really help out a cornerback room, a room that's light on depth. This can be a guy in Markevius Brown who could really kind of step into a much bigger role and still stay at the Power Conference level. So right now, we're going to take another quick break on the show. When we come back, we're going to preview Oh, no, we're not. We're doing my recruiting roundup. I got confused. I messed up my segments. But next, we're going to do some recruiting news. So we're going to talk a little more about some of the kind of scuttlebutt, some of the rumors around the recruiting world. But we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Happy Friday, everybody. We're going to keep going with some recruiting news. Just kind of the scuttlebutt, the rumors, and just kind of what's been trending, what's been happening around the recruiting world. We're not going to dive into super in-depth on prospects or anything, just kind of take a general overview, I guess. One of the big programs that this is a huge recruiting cycle for is the USC Trojans. This is a really big year. They're looking to bounce back from that 7-6 record in 2024, prove that they can still be relevant on a national stage. And Lincoln Riley, he's been recruiting like somebody who knows what's at stake right now. They currently have the nation's #1 recruiting class, according to ESPN, 16 4-stars among their 26 commitments, and they have the biggest piece of the puzzle right now. They were able to get their quarterback, 4-star quarterback Jonas Williams, were able to flip him from Oregon to where he was previously committed. Able to also find success with some of the top prospects on defense as well, which is really, really big. 4 of the 6 USC top 100 commitments are on the defensive side of the ball. You have corners Albert Hill, Brandon Lockhart, D lineman Jamian Winfield, and Samote Kadawanga. It's Lincoln Riley's turn to hang on to these guys, though. Albert Hill and Winfield, especially, those 2 guys are from outside of their region of recruiting normally. Albert Hill is from Ohio. He's from Akron, Ohio. Then Jamian Winfield is from Texas. So being able to stave off those big in-state schools there was a big win. Now they have to hold on to them. Lincoln Riley has to keep these guys, has to maintain that class in order to kind of keep this positive momentum going on the recruiting trail, and hopefully get them back to the national stage of relevance right now. They really struggled in their first year in the Big Ten. Holes all over the place right now. And it seems like there's a need for a talent influx at USC right now. Looking at quarterbacks, the dominoes are kind of falling in place. 7 of the top 10 quarterbacks have already committed. Ryder Lyons, 5-star California native, and then Landon Duckworth, high 4-star from Alabama. Those are the top 2 guys that are still on the board. Ryder Lyons has kind of kept a low profile, but expected to officially visit USC, Oregon, and BYU this month. And Landon Duckworth, he has a top 5 of Auburn, Florida State, Ole Miss, South Carolina, North Carolina. So where those 2 guys end up is one of the biggest remaining dominoes of the 2026 board of how these guys are going to shake out, what's going to happen here. Those 2, though, officially going on their visits starting this month, that's going to be big. Ryder Lyons looks like he's going to stay on the West Coast. And then Landon Duckworth, kind of all over the place right now. Seems like he's staying in SEC country. I would have Ole Miss as the leader for Landon Duckworth right now. Sounds like they've really tried to push hard to land him. And then for Ryder Lyons, this one could kind of more go down to the wire. USC still involved, even though they do have quarterback Jonas Williams. I think this is probably an Oregon or BYU pick. BYU's really had some momentum on the recruiting trail too, bringing in a tight end in the 26 class. That's their highest ranked recruit ever. So they do have a little bit of forward momentum. Also have some momentum on the basketball side of things too. So could BYU actually be a contender? I think it's actually certainly very possible. I still would probably go Oregon more so for Rider Lions, but I think that one's kind of a little more in the air right now. Then North Carolina. It's interesting seeing Bill Belichick go on his first tour of high schools across the state at the beginning of the year as he got acclimated to kind of recruiting for the first time. Since then, though, UNC has pretty much had no traction with in-state prospects. Of their 15 commits right now, only 2 are from the Tar Heel State. Only 2 are from North Carolina. They have 3 from California. So Bill Belichick doesn't look like he's really having much success right now in North Carolina. Will that be a trend that we're going to continue to see, or is he going to kind of try to rectify things? Normally, it's always great when you get your in-state prospects. That's kind of your first thing on the board, is trying to get the best guys in your state to go to your school. It'll be interesting. Belichick and UNC, according to one high school coach in the state, he said they came through his high school in the spring, but otherwise it's been radio silence on their end. Maybe it's too early to question the greatest football coach ever, but I don't know. If UNC wins games, none of this is going to matter. Bill Belichick can recruit however he wants. He can bring in whoever they want. But if they have a decent amount of talent in the state, which North Carolina does for 2026 prospects, UNC doesn't appear to be in any position to take advantage of that right now. So that's going to be a trend that we're going to have to keep an eye on, is will Bill Belichick be able to recruit his state a little better? Will he be able to start reeling in some of these big prospects from North Carolina? I think that's going to be kind of an interesting storyline to follow. One school that has been able to land a lot of talent from North Carolina is Notre Dame. Notre Dame right now, 3 of the top 11 prospects in North Carolina have committed to Notre Dame. Thomas Davis Jr., he kind of said that it's a trend that I've definitely noticed. It really just kind of goes to show what program they are, and how if they truly think that you can fit there, they're going to go get you no matter where you're at in the country, essentially. Thomas Davis Jr. committed to Notre Dame last November. Recently got a Georgia offer where obviously his dad starred in the early 2000s. He is heading to Athens on Friday for an official visit, so that's going to be interesting. It's the only other school he plans to visit outside of Notre Dame. Will we see a flip here from a legacy recruit in Thomas Davis Jr. going then to his father's alma mater, where he made his name, where he starred for the Bulldogs? It's going to be interesting. He said, too, that he's like, I know Georgia's really coming for me right now, but I still feel pretty locked in to Notre Dame. So, Thomas Davis Jr., going to be kind of an interesting storyline to follow there, is where he ends up. Will he be at Notre Dame? Will he be at Georgia? We're not really sure. We're going to have to find out. Clemson, too. Clemson is really hot right now, both on the field and in terms of recruiting. Dabo Swinney currently has 15 commits in the 2026 class, including 10 blue chippers, for an average recruiting ranking of 90.65 for these players, which is pretty much a high 4-star. 5 top 200 prospects, 2 quarterbacks already committed, and 4-star Tate Reynolds, 3-star Brock Bradley. Don't be surprised if there's more fireworks coming up soon. They have really been on fire. Clemson's only official visit weekend of the summer begins today. So that's going to be interesting too. Will they be able to land somebody that previously we hadn't thought was on Clemson's radar? That's going to be curious. They really have a lot of momentum right now, and it doesn't seem like that's stopping, though, at any time. Then I think an interesting prospect to follow, too. 4-star wideout Messiah Hampton. So Messiah Hampton, number 100 recruit in the nation, number 11 wide receiver, highest rated prospect coming out of the state of New York since 2019. So in 5 years, this guy's been the best prospect in the state. He's committing on June 13th. He's down to 7 schools: Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan, Miami, Syracuse, and Georgia. Fran Brown and the Syracuse Orange, they're going to have an uphill battle. But kudos to them for sticking in this, for making the final cut of this top 100 prospect. That's going to be a guy to watch. Incredibly talented wide receiver, could land at a number of different schools. But we're going to just have to wait and see. That's coming out in 2 weeks when we see Messiah Hampton's commitment. Where will he end up? Highest rated guy in New York since 2019. It's going to be a big deal. Also, what's going on with LSU and Alabama? The two SEC schools, they lead the nation in average player rating at 95.18, 94.28 respectively. But Alabama only has 5 commits. LSU only has 9. And neither have a quarterback as well. So Brian Kelly, Kellen DeBoer are going to want to try to change that. But the pressure is on, especially for Brian Kelly, after missing out last year on Bryce Underwood on that crazy last-minute flip to Michigan. And they didn't sign a quarterback in the 25 class either. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Brian Kelly to try to get one of these guys that are still on the board. 7 of the top 10 quarterbacks are already committed. Could they try to get Landon Duckworth? It's possible. I don't know if he's really going to be in the mix there. But they're going to have to get somebody. They know they're in good shape this year with Garrett Nussmeier. But after that, it's kind of shaky. They did bring in Michael Van Buren, too, from Mississippi State to be the backup, the long-term backup. But this is a place where they're going to need some more quarterback depth. Ohio State also doesn't have a quarterback in their 26 class right now. They're in good shape, though, for the foreseeable future. Both Julian Say and Tavian St. Clair, former 5-stars on the roster. And they have multiple years of eligibility left. So this isn't as big of a problem for Ohio State, but still kind of an interesting little tidbit that they don't have a quarterback either. It's going to be interesting, I think, kind of just seeing where everybody ends up. One of the big things is going to be the quarterbacks. Who's going to end up where? Where will Landon Duckworth go? Where will Ryder Lyons go? I think that's going to be some of the big things here. And then just seeing what happens too. Can LSU, can Alabama fill out the rest of their classes? Can some of these other schools maintain their positive momentum, such as Clemson? We're going to have to wait and see. This is going to be a big month of official visits, of guys committing, visiting different places, flipping. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But June is going to be an exciting month in the recruiting world. So right now, we're going to take another short break on the show. When we come back, now it's time for my Conference USA preview. We're going to touch on that conference, give a little rundown, kind of similar to what we did with the MAC. But we're going to dive into that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Friday, May 30th. Gonna keep moving on. Gonna talk now about Conference USA. Give a little preview for them. Interesting season last year, but this has been a league that's been interesting. Of the 10 programs to move up to the FCS level since 2014, 8 have joined the Conference USA upon their arrival. And this is a conference where realignment really hasn't been super kind to them of late. 3 schools left for the AAC in 2014, 3 schools left for the Sun Belt in 2022, 6 schools are heading to the AAC or headed to the AAC in 2023, and UTEP departs for the Mountain West this year. But serving as kind of the Ellis Island of the FBS assures the conference has an identity and, well, has quantity of teams, frankly. two of these relative newcomers to the FBS level have won the league in the past 2 years. You had Liberty they won in 2023, and then in 24, it was Jacksonville State's turn. They did the deed in just the second year at the FBS level. Sam Houston, also second year in the FBS, they went 10-3. So kind of an interesting scenario here. On paper, looks like Liberty's pretty likely to take the crown back this year, but nobody saw Jacksonville State coming last year. Could we have another surprise in store? It's certainly very possible. If you're looking at what happened last year, on paper, Liberty kind of graded out slightly ahead of everybody in SP+. They still had Caden Salter. They still had Quentin Cooley last year. So they also had a couple of random duds, though. Lose 27-24 to Kennesaw State. You lose to Sam Houston as well. And it kind of just rendered them afterthoughts in the title race. Rich Rod's Jacksonville State took full advantage. They lost to Western Kentucky in the last week of the regular season, but then come back a week later and thump them 52-12 to take the Conference USA title. Sam Houston also took a really nice step forward. One kind of tangled with good fortune, but took a step forward. And then both Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State lost their head coach, and now they're going to have to kind of do it all over again. If you're looking at continuity, the team that's actually returning the most production is Kennesaw State. However, Kennesaw State went 2-10 last year. So, I don't know if you really want all those guys coming back, but I could certainly be wrong on that. Delaware also has a decent chunk. There's a couple other schools, but then Jacksonville State really lost a lot, only returning 28% of their production, last in the Conference USA this year. Western Kentucky also lost a good chunk. They're at 36 returning percent. Sam Houston only at 39. So some of the top programs here really lost a ton. And then Liberty, I think this is kind of why they're projected to kind of be in the lead right now, is they have 59% of their returning production coming back. Not a ton, but it's a lot more than Jacksonville State's 28%. So could that kind of factor in? I think it's going to be interesting. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, all still in the projected top 4, but their projected win totals are pretty telling right now. Sam Houston to UTEP, those 6 teams in that kind of range are projected to win between 4.8 and 5.8 games. So whoever wins their close games, that's going to be the best team to come out of that kind of batch. And then Liberty, Western Kentucky, they're the most proven entities at this moment. Liberty, they've won at least 8 games for 6 straight years. Western Kentucky has reached the conference title game 4 times. They've won 2 of them since joining the league only 10 years ago. So between those two, they start out with a nearly 50% chance of winning the conference, and then pretty much every other eligible team has at least 4%. Jacksonville State started out at just 7%. So we're not too far from, a potentially chaotic championship race. There's some really interesting games here. Week 0, there's the headliner of, obviously, in Dublin, Iowa State, Kansas State, but there's another Week 0 matchup in Conference USA with Sam Houston and Western Kentucky. I think this is going to be a game where it might have a similar impact to Kansas State, Iowa State, where whoever wins immediately becomes one of the top contenders for the conference championship. I think that's going to be the case with Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. We're going to see Week 0 who's going to have the early kind of lead to be at the top of that conference championship race. There's also a really big matchup on the last week of the season, too, involving Western Kentucky, where they have to go to Jacksonville State. This was a big-time matchup last year and pretty much decided who would play in the conference championship game. It came down to the last week of the regular season. It's very possible that something similar could happen this year in 2025, making this Western Kentucky-Jacksonville State a potential big-time matchup, potential play-in game to get to the Conference USA championship game. I think that's certainly very possible. When you're looking at some of the teams here that obviously are at the top. Liberty, they're going to be interesting. So last year, they were coming off that 13-1 season in 2023. They returned Caden Salter. They returned their 1,400-yard rusher. They returned 6 defensive starters. They were projected to be around 40th in the country. They ended up finishing 30 spots lower. So without C.J. Daniels, who was their star wideout who had transferred to LSU, the big plays disappeared. And Cooley in the running game, they were still excellent, but passing downs were suddenly really a problem. So it's going to be interesting. Jamie Chadwell obviously has a really great record of offensive success dating back to his time at Coastal Carolina with some of those really interesting offenses that they ran. And in his past 5 years at Coastal and at Liberty combined, he's 50-12. So this is a guy that knows how to win. He knows how to put his team in spots to where they can potentially pull out a win. It's going to be interesting who's going to start at quarterback. Probably going to be Ethan Vasco, a guy that originally signed with Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina. He's transferring in. He will likely start at quarterback. Then you have a line that's returning 3 starters. You have a guy that also added in Florida State guard Kristen Williams. I missed my spot on my notes. But this is a team that still has a good chunk. Your running back core is kind of unproven this year after losing Cooley and Billy Lucas, who was their backup. But Chadwell's offenses, they always move the ball on the ground. And they also have returnees, Vaughn Blue, Julian Gray, who average 6 yards per carry between the two of them, albeit that is in a limited sample, but still pretty good production. You also have a freshman coming in Jalen Coleman, who was a 4-star prospect. So a big-time pickup for Liberty there, a guy that could potentially compete for early playing time. The defense, last year, they needed to pick up the slack, and they didn't. And obviously, they end up going 8-4. They don't win the conference. They defended the run pretty well, but they got burned a lot in the passing game. So it's going to be interesting what happens. They don't have their sacks leader, TJ Bush, back. He transferred to Cal this spring. You do bring in Aaron Hester from Florida State, Darrell Farr from Appalachian State, and that could help. And then just overall improvement of young guys getting more experience, getting more time, that could help the defense as well. There's a lot of sophomores, Brenton Williams, Ethan Crisp, Jamal Miles, who all got a lot of playing time last year, who could all kind of develop into something more as sophomores, take a big step, have a breakout season. It's very possible. Liberty, everything's just going to kind of have to fall into place, though, and we're going to have to see. I think Western Kentucky is going to be really interesting to watch. I think Jacksonville State, they're a couple breaks away. Obviously, they have a new head coach. And then I think Sam Houston, they also have a new head coach in Phil Longo. But this is a program, too, that won 10 games last year. They're going to be interesting, though. They had a lot of kind of lucky wins, I would say, last year. Will that kind of pendulum swing back on the other side this upcoming season to where they're not so lucky in some of those close matchups? It's certainly very possible. But those are all kind of intriguing teams. This is going to be a fun conference. It's going to be top-heavy. But we're going to see some really good football coming out of the Conference USA this upcoming season. So right now, we're going to take our last break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Big 12 and WWE, expanding their partnership and what that means for both the Big 12 and the WWE wrestling industry, I guess. So stick with us. We'll be right back on the GSMC College Football Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Friday, May 30th. Going to finish off the show today by talking a little bit about the Big 12 and WWE expanding their partnership. This was something that got announced last night. Chris Vannetti from The Athletic broke the news in a tweet kind of saying that they've agreed to extend their partnership. And this is something that I think is a good move for both sides. So what's going to happen is WWE is essentially going to put some of their Friday night SmackDowns in the cities of Big 12 universities. So they're going to go to Lubbock. They're going to go to Manhattan, Kansas. They're going to have their programming on Friday night, the night before these big-time football matchups on Saturday. It's going to be interesting. And they also they're going to do a show from Dublin, Ireland, week 0, too, for that Big 12 matchup of Iowa State, Kansas State, that Farmageddon matchup that's going to occur on August 23rd in Dublin, Ireland. There's going to be a WWE Friday Night SmackDown on August 22nd in Dublin as well. It's going to be interesting. I kind of like this. I think it's something where it's a unique kind of partnership. We don't really see conferences or anything like that basically pairing with this big global entity. Obviously, wrestling, it's kind of its own industry. Entertainment, sports, performance, there's a whole lot that goes into it. But it's kind of unique, and it's something that I think it's smart for the Big 12 to try to capitalize on. It's a whole new demographic. Then, your kind of normal college football audience. WWE in particular has a lot of younger viewers, and you can kind of focus that towards growing the next version of college football fans. I think it's a really smart idea. No SmackDown dates have been announced yet during the college football season, so we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on that. But Big 12 cities, they're going to have some of these big events. I don't know if it's going to be every week. We haven't kind of learned how it's going to shake out. Is it going to be every single week that WWE is going to be going to one of these Big 12 cities? Or is it going to be a few weeks? We're not really sure yet. But for sure, WWE is coming to at least a few Big 12 universities, campuses, the night before big games. I also kind of like that. I think it helps drive excitement from both fans of wrestling and fans of college football. It just kind of creates this atmosphere that's really exciting, that really just dives into the college experience, dives into kind of the whole pageantry of college football, of wrestling as well. This is something where it could be kind of similar to, if you go back to the 90s, WCW did this a lot. They would run their Monday Night Nitros in college towns. It would kind of help create this frenzied environment, a passionate crowd in which a lot of the people that are attending are normally a little younger. You have a lot of college-age kids there. You kind of create this big-time, student-heavy crowd, really fun environment that's a little different than normal WWE shows. So from the WWE perspective, too, you're probably going to have some of these Friday Night SmackDown shows that are going to have super high energy, have really great crowds, and that just helps drives the product overall. If you look at it from the football point of view, kind of the same concept, right? WWE is a billion-dollar industry, absolutely massive. So in terms of eyeballs to the product, if you have, your casual wrestling fans turning in and going, hey, why are they in Lubbock, Texas? That could be something where it helps bring attention to the Big 12, helps bring attention to their on-field product as well, bringing in kind of some of these more casual fans or potentially creating new fans overall. Those are all possibilities with this partnership. I like it too. I think it's something that the Big 12 should continue to keep doing. They kind of announced this partnership ahead of the 2023 Conference Championship. And during the Conference Championships the past 2 years, they've gotten a championship belt for the winning school. There's been a WWE superstar that kind of is there presenting as the face of the company. It's interesting, and it's something different. It's something that the Big 12 is trying to do to kind of create a new environment, create a new partnership, and help drive attention to their product, especially at a time when the Big 12 is really starting to slip in terms of kind of their standing throughout the college world. You have the Big 10, you have the SEC, have kind of really taken over, put a stranglehold over college football throughout, essentially, overall. The Big 12, they're kind of treading water right now. They're still around for now, but there's not a lot of forward momentum. There's not a lot of positive progress, I guess, towards the future of college football involving the Big 12. So doing something outside the box to try to bring eyeballs to your product, it's a good idea. It doesn't hurt the Big 12, I think, at all. If anything, might be a little gimmicky at times, but that's okay. If the end goal is getting more people to the product, creating more excitement, energy around some of these events in both the wrestling world and in the college football world, this is a really big plus for the Big 12 and for the WWE. I also wonder, I don't know the financials of this at all. I don't know actually how this partnership, who's paying who for what, I'm not sure. But I'm sure it's probably a lucrative partnership, either from WWE ponying up to the Big 12 or vice versa. But that could bring in additional revenue for the Big 12 as well. Another thing to look at too, I think, is merchandising. If you're partnered with WWE and you're the Big 12, why not create an official line of merchandise? That's WWE always makes their really big numbers in revenue from merchandising sales. It's one of the biggest things in wrestling. So if you're able to kind of create maybe a co-branded WWE and Kansas shirt or a sweatshirt or something, bringing that in, having some more merchandise to where you're kind of branding together, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it'd be something that the Big 12 would be smart to try to approach. You create a whole new line of merchandise. You do something with the WWE, and you have a partner who clearly knows how to sell t-shirts, sell various items of merchandise. That's one of their biggest things. So if you're able to kind of lean on WWE for that experience, potentially get some more revenue, yeah, a couple t-shirts, a couple sweatshirts aren't going to bring in a ton of money, right? But it's still something. It's still something to where the Big 12 can kind of point to it and say, hey, this is something we're doing different than the other power conferences. This is something that sets us apart. I think that's something that makes a lot of sense. And it's a good idea to keep this partnership growing and potentially expand it even more. But I think the idea of bringing SmackDown to these college towns, having these kind of frenzied crowds, it just helps drive excitement overall too for the weekend. You have that on Friday leading into a big Saturday football game. That's really exciting. You can have fans attend wrestling, or even if they don't attend wrestling, still just the kind of hubbub of them being around there. When you're on a college campus and you go look and see WWE trailers or whatever, you're going to be like, oh, what's going on there? At the very minimum, it kind of sparks some curiosity. So I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that we might see expanded even more. But for right now, I think it's smart. You put these shows in the college towns, you kind of help create this excitement around both events, and you create something new, something different that we haven't really seen in college football yet. So with that, we are going to end our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC College Football Podcast. When you see me next, we'll be on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So it's the last show of me just talking college football. It's been a lot of fun. But please remember to subscribe, like, follow the channel. And if you want, you can also go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok for even more sports content, more sports updates that you love. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to